Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and with me, as always, is our amazing co-host, Julia.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here again. Jason, today's topic is something so many English learners struggle with, but often don't talk about.
Absolutely, Julia. Today, we're going to talk about something that holds a lot of people back, the fear of speaking English. If you've ever felt afraid, shy, or nervous when speaking English, you are not alone.
Yes, so many learners experience this fear. Maybe you're scared of making mistakes, or maybe you worry about what people will think. That fear is normal, but here's the good news. You can overcome it.
Exactly. In this podcast, we're going to explore why this fear happens, and we'll share some really helpful tips to help you build confidence and speak English without fear.
And remember, mistakes are a part of learning. So stick with us until the end, because we'll also share some motivational advice to help you start speaking English today with more confidence.
So let's get started. Are you ready, Julia?
I'm ready, Jason. Let's dive in.
All right, let's talk about the big question. Why are so many people afraid to speak English? Julia, I think a lot of learners can relate to this feeling.
Yes, Jason. One of the main reasons people feel afraid is the fear of making mistakes. When you're learning English, you might worry that you'll say the wrong word, use the wrong grammar, or pronounce something incorrectly.
Exactly, and this fear often stops people from even trying to speak. They think, if I make a mistake, people will laugh at me or judge me.
Right. I've heard learners say things like, I don't want to look stupid, or I feel embarrassed when I make errors. But here's the truth. Mistakes are part of learning. No one speaks perfectly all the time, even native speakers.
That's so true. And another reason learners feel afraid is a lack of confidence. If you're not used to speaking English often, it's natural to feel nervous. Maybe you think your vocabulary is limited or your accent isn't good enough.
Yes. For example, imagine you're in class and the teacher asks you a question in English. You know the answer, but you freeze. Or you're at work and someone says, "Can you explain this in English?" Suddenly, you feel stuck because you're afraid of saying the wrong thing.
I think we've all had moments like that, Julia. And sometimes the fear comes from past experiences. Maybe someone corrected you in a harsh way, or you tried to speak and someone laughed. That can make you feel afraid to try again.
Yes, those experiences can really hold people back, but we want our listeners to know you're not alone. So many people around the world have this same fear, and it's totally normal.
Absolutely. The most important thing is to recognize the fear and understand why it happens. Once you know what's stopping you, you can start to work on overcoming it.
That's right, Jason. And don't worry, we're here to help you with practical tips in the next part of this podcast.
Exactly. So if you've ever felt afraid to speak English, don't feel bad. It's a common problem, but we're going to show you how to beat it. Now that we've talked about why people feel afraid to speak English, let's take a closer look at this fear. Julia, I think it's important to understand where this fear really comes from.
You're absolutely right, Jason. When we feel afraid to speak English, it's not just about the language, it's about how we think and feel. It's a mix of emotions like nervousness, embarrassment, and even self-doubt.
Exactly. For example, many people worry about being judged. They think, what if people think my English is bad? Or what if they laugh at my mistakes? These thoughts create fear, and fear stops us from speaking.
Yes, Jason. And a lot of this comes from wanting to be perfect. People feel they need to speak perfect English. No grammar mistakes, no wrong words, and no accent. But the truth is, perfection is impossible, even for native speakers.
That's so true. Another thing that causes fear is comparing yourself to others. Maybe you hear someone speaking fluently and you think, why can't I speak like that? But what you don't see is the practice and effort that person put in.
Exactly. It's easy to feel like you're not good enough, but remember, everyone starts somewhere. Nobody wakes up one day and speaks perfect English. It takes time, practice, and mistakes.
Yes, and the important thing is to understand that making mistakes doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning. Every time you try to speak, you're getting better.
That's a great point, Jason. Once you understand that this fear comes from your thoughts, like the fear of judgment or the need for perfection, you can start to change those thoughts.
Exactly. Speaking English is not about being perfect, it's about communicating. If you focus on sharing your ideas instead of worrying about mistakes, you'll start to feel more confident.
Yes, it's all about changing your mindset. Instead of thinking, I'm afraid to make a mistake, try thinking, every time I speak, I'm improving.
That's a powerful idea, Julia. Once you understand your fear and where it comes from, you can start to take steps to overcome it. And in the next part, we're going to share some simple and practical tips to help you do that.
I can't wait for that, Jason, so stay with us, everyone. There's so much more to come.
Now that we understand where the fear of speaking English comes from, let's talk about how to overcome it. Julia, I know our listeners are looking for practical tips, so let's give them some easy strategies they can use right away.
Absolutely, Jason. Let's start with the first tip. Focus on communication, not perfection. Remember, the goal of speaking English is to share your ideas, not to be perfect. Mistakes are okay. If someone understands you, then you're doing a great job.
That's such an important point, Julia. Here's another tip. Start small. If you're afraid to speak, begin with simple sentences or phrases. For example, you can practice saying things like, "How are you?" or "Can I have a coffee, please?" in everyday situations.
Exactly. Small steps will help you build confidence over time. And this brings us to the third tip. Practice in a safe environment. Find someone you trust, a friend, a family member, or even a language partner online, and practice speaking with them.
Yes, when you practice with someone supportive, you'll feel more relaxed. Another great idea is to talk to yourself in English. It might sound funny, but it works. You can describe your day, talk about your plans, or practice new words by saying them out loud.
I love that tip, Jason. And here's one more. Listen and repeat. If you're watching a podcast, a video, or a movie in English, try repeating sentences after the speaker. This will improve your pronunciation and make you feel more comfortable speaking.
That's a great way to practice. Another tip is to join English-speaking groups or communities. Yes, it could be a small study group, a club, or even an online chat group. Speaking with others, even just a little, will help you get used to using English.
Yes. And don't forget to celebrate your progress. Every time you speak, no matter how small, you are improving. Don't focus on what you did wrong. Focus on what you did right.
Exactly, Julia. Overcoming fear is about taking action, even when you feel nervous. Remember, the more you speak, the more confident you'll become.
That's right. So start small, practice daily, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're learning, and every step counts.
Those are some simple and effective tips, Julia. If our listeners start using even one or two of these, they'll see big improvements.
I agree, Jason. So to everyone listening, don't let fear stop you. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and you'll get better every day.
Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with some motivation. If you feel afraid to speak English, remember this. Every expert was once a beginner.
Yes, everyone starts from zero. Even the most fluent English speakers made mistakes when they were learning. Mistakes don't mean failure, they mean progress.
That's right. Imagine where you could be 6 months or a year from now if you just keep trying. The key is to keep speaking, no matter how you feel. Every time you try, you get a little better.
And don't compare yourself to others. Your journey is unique. Celebrate every small victory, whether it's ordering food in English, having a short conversation, or even learning a new word. You're doing great.
Yes, confidence comes from action. The more you speak, the less afraid you'll feel. Believe in yourself, trust the process, and remember, you are capable of improving.
So don't give up. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. You're not alone, and we're cheering for you every step of the way.
Exactly, you've got this. Believe it and keep going.
We believe in you.
All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope this podcast has helped you understand your fear of speaking English and given you some practical tips to overcome it.
Yes, remember, fear is normal, but you can beat it. Start small, keep practicing, and focus on progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Don't let fear stop you. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast for more helpful tips and lessons.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep practicing, stay positive, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone. You've got this. Bye for now.